Managing profit margins to stay in the game. That's the goal of farming anytime, but especially after years of disappointing wheat prices. SunUp's Dave Deacon is in Noble County to talk to a farmer who is going back to the basics of raising wheat.
The shaft I was talking about, you can see from the tractor cab, you can see the seed cups, and got shaft runs all the way across, and you can see that turning from the tractor cab. And when you see that turning, you know you're putting seed out. You don't have to worry about some electrical wire coming loose causing it to not work.
Cody is farming the same land his family has for generations. He, his brother, and father grow wheat, and altogether they run about 3,000 acres across Noble County. Just like many other wheat producers, Cody says it seems like it costs a little more to produce a crop that is a little harder to market.
Yeah, the bad things, we've had about 3 years in a row that weren't very good. There's been good spots here and there, but overall it's been pretty tough between the markets and the weather and all the variables we can't really control.
When Cody was planning out the 2020 wheat crop, he decided to try something a little less flashy.
This year, instead of putting a whole bunch of money into that air drill, I pulled these drills out, which were my grandfather's. They were bought back in the early 90s, and it was a whole lot cheaper to fix them up. And the one thing we can control out here is our cost of our equipment. And technology's nice and sure is fun to run, but it doesn't make the payments. We don't get any more for our grain whether we use $400,000 worth of equipment or $40,000 worth of equipment to farm it. The elevator doesn't give us any extra. So I'm trying to control the cost of my inputs, at least with the equipment that I'm using.
Little this year, Cody came across an old Gleaner L2 at a farm auction.
And back in their day, these were quite a combine in their day.
And he bought it.
One little bobtail load of wheat will pay for that combine. I've got a John Deere combine, an older one, but the cost of repairs on it are so high when something does break down that I'm going back to something that's cheaper to maintain and leave the John Deere sit in the barn that costs more to maintain. So I'm just trying to cut down where I can to in these tough commodity times. You don't need fancy technology to farm for cattle and still harvest some crop, but you know, that was what founded this area, and that's what made all the old timers, that's what made them what they were. And so if we can cut down our costs, then that gives us more margin for maybe when things get better, we can expand back into better technology, but at least we'll still be in business when that time comes, hopefully.
So John, where have we seen the technology growth over the past, say, 30 years or so?
Well, we've seen growth in pretty much every sector of ag machinery. We've seen a lot of growth in recent years in kind of electronics, incorporating electronics and machinery. Some of that has due to trying to increase, our capacity and the things we do and increasing our precision. But some of those things are, kind of regulatory because of emission requirements by engines and things like that. So to go back, as you're saying in technology, you're going to have to go back in year models and production years, which means you're kind of limited in what's out there because they're not making any more of a particular model that was produced in the 90s or 70s or whatever. And so because of that, you got to consider the kind of experience of that particular machine and what it's been through. Has it been rebuilt? That kind of stuff.
It is kind of nice to be in a cab and be able to have all the monitors of your quality that's going through the combine.
Exactly. I mean, those things are really nice to have, even if you're not necessarily directly using them to, influence your planting or other parameters on your operation. But, if we look at just some of the basic things like, guidance systems, auto steer systems on larger operations, a lot of those things really aren't there for, trying to necessarily improve your yields or maybe even they're going to a certain extent be able to kind of improve your efficiency and sometimes, but really it kind of boils down to kind of driver, fatigue. If you look at a tractor like the one we've got behind us here that's a little bit newer model, if you look at the cab of that one and we go to a cab of one that's 20, 30 years older, right, the visibility to be able to see things around you as you're kind of going through the field, if you're planting, just the actual interior of the cab as far as the seat, environmental controls, air conditioning, right, heat, that kind of things, you can last a whole lot longer in the day with something like that than you can with the older equipment. That driver fatigue really kind of wears on your body over time.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Dr. John Long, Ag Engineer here at Oklahoma State University.